Hello guys, back again. So this is the third of my 3 videos on the depictions of D-Day or the Normandy landings in popular culture. So the first 2 were on Medal of Honor Allied Assault, the video game from 2002, and there was Call of Duty World War II, which came out in 2017. And the final one, and no points for guessing which one I'm going to do next, is the opening scene of Saving Private Ryan. Now, before I go any further, of course, I would suggest that you go and see those videos if you haven't seen them already. You can stop the video right now and go check them out, or see them afterwards, of course. But more importantly than that, for any of the younger people that are watching this, that have not seen Saving Private Ryan, which was a movie that came out in, I think it was 1998, if you haven't seen it, stop the video and go watch the movie. Go and see that movie. You can find the opening Omaha Beach scene on YouTube. You can watch that, but really I would suggest that you see the whole movie. Now, when I saw Saving Private Ryan, when I'd heard about it, I had no idea what it was even about. I didn't even know it was a World War II movie. And somebody brought it home and put the movie on and said, hey, let's watch this. And as I said, I was quite young. I was younger than I was when I played Medal of Honor Allied Assault, and the opening was, and I wish I could explain what it was like seeing it for the first time. And I didn't even see it in the cinema. So I think for people that saw it in the cinema, they were quite fortunate to see that at the time. I did, before I made this video, search for any cinemas in the local area to find out if there were any that would be playing that movie. But unfortunately, there were none. I think it was a recent anniversary of that movie last year, so I think they were playing it then, but they're not playing it this year for the 80th anniversary of the D-Day landings. Now, there's a reason why I did this one last, and I do think maybe I should have done it first. I don't really know, but the thing you have to understand about the previous 2 videos that I made, about Medal of Honor Allied Assault and about Call of Duty World War II, is that those 2 levels, the Omaha Beach level in Medal of Honor Allied Assault and the Omaha Beach level in Call of Duty World War II, would not exist without Saving Private Ryan. The Medal of Honor series was created by Steven Spielberg, actually around about the same time as Saving Private Ryan, and the Call of Duty series, and I won't go too deep into it, really grew out of Medal of Honor. I think the first Call of Duty games were actually made by the guys who made Medal of Honor Allied Assault, and the similarities between all 3 of these scenes is incredible. Let's take the fact that all 3 take place on Omaha Beach. There were other beaches. There was Utah Beach, if you want to go to another beach that was being assaulted by the Americans. And of course, you have the other beaches, Juneau and Sword and what have you, that were being assaulted by, by Brits, by Canadians, and you find a kind of a few threads running through all 3 of these scenes between the games and between the movie. So, the opening of Medal of Honor Allied Assault, as I said, you have a black screen, you have some white text, June 6, 1944, Omaha Beach. And it's near enough identical in Saving Private Ryan. You hear the ocean, you see the tank traps, you see the men in the landing vehicles. Tom Hanks, starts with his hand shaking as he's drinking water. Somebody's yelling orders. Somebody else in the platoon is, chewing on tobacco. And, how to even describe this scene. As I said, if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it and then come back and watch this video. Preferably watch the movie. But for those who have seen it, you'll remember seeing it for the first time. And more than anything, the thing that stood out to me as 11, 12-year-old was just the shocking violence. The gore and the blood. This is not Medal of Honor Allied Assault. It is showing the horrors of war, and people with limbs being blown off. There's a scene that would be comical in any other context, but certainly was not here, with a guy whose arm is blown off, and then he picks up his arm and he's kind of looks a bit confused and is walking around. There's a scene where Tom Hanks is dragging a guy up the beach, and then there's an explosion and he keeps dragging the guy up the beach, and then he realizes that the entire bottom half of this guy is missing. That moment in Medal of Honor Allied Assault where the guy is on the beach, and he's saying, my guts are falling out, and you don't see anything, there's no blood, there's no gore, it's just a guy kind of on his back yelling. But that's not the case in Saving Private Ryan. You see the blood, the guts, the gore. You see the guy, his guts are literally coming out. I remember one of the moments that really got me as a kid was where the guy, they're at the shingles now, I think, and he gets hit in the head, but he's got his helmet on, and he's like, shocked, like, holy moly, and somebody says, hey, you're a lucky guy, and then he takes off the helmet and then immediately gets shot in the head. If the purpose of the scene was to demonstrate almost the cheapness of life in that moment and how easy it was for you to lose your life, death and destruction everywhere, then it certainly did that. It's the kind of scene, I always use this expression that, a story, a movie, what have you, grabs me or it doesn't, and this one certainly did grab me, and it was an incredibly powerful scene. And you've got a lot of the same things in both Medal of Honor Allied Assault and Call of Duty World War II. The mention of the Bangalores. There's some guy saying, hey, we're waiting for the tanks, we want our armor, armor being tanks, and Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan says the armor's in the channel. It's at the bottom of the channel. It's in the sea. There's no armor. You have no tanks backing you up here. The same thing happens in Medal of Honor Allied Assault. I can't remember if the same thing happens in Call of Duty. But, the scene in COD World War II, I think there's a guy whose leg gets blown off. Same thing happens here in Saving Private Ryan. So what you can really see in both Medal of Honor Allied Assault and Call of Duty World War II is an attempt to recreate, a very obvious attempt to recreate that opening scene from Saving Private Ryan because it was so incredibly powerful. And, the same thing with the Bangalores, in Saving Private Ryan, there's a moment where, they get to the shingles, they get to the barbed wire, and they now have to get through the barbed wire, and they don't have time to kind of, get some clippers and clip the shingles, the barbed wire. They're just going to use the Bangalores. You get these things, you screw them together, and then you throw them over, and then it blows up. It creates an opening, and then you can then, start trying to make your way to the top instead of being, at the mercy of these MG42s and this artillery. And the scene is just shocking. There's explosions, men's bodies being thrown 20 feet in the air. And remember, there's that moment where Tom Hanks, who does a fantastic job, and all of the actors do a great job in this movie. Tom Hanks, you can see he's by the tank traps, he's still near the water, and the water is blood red, and he picks up his helmet. I think his hand is shaking, and then he puts his helmet on, and then the bloody water just kind of comes down his face, and then just a look of shock on his face. And so brilliantly done, and just says something about the filmmaking abilities of Steven Spielberg. There's a reason why he's still Steven Spielberg, and he's been having major hits in Hollywood since the 1980s. And there's also the moment where sort of just a small touch. It's incredible. I don't know too much about movie making. I never made a movie in my life, but little things stand out to me. Like the moment when they throw themselves out of the side of the landing craft, which is also what happened in Cold World War II. That's not a coincidence. And the men are they fall into the water because they're too far away from the beach. And some of them drown, which is historically accurate. That happened, and the tanks really were at the bottom of the channel on D-Day. I don't know exactly what mistakes were made, but they had no armor. And at that moment, when you're making your way up that beach, those tanks would have been incredibly useful. So, but the moment I'm talking about is where, as the camera dips below the water and then comes back up, underneath it sounds like you're kind of in water. The sound is kind of, it's muffled, and then when the camera comes out of the water, you can hear the din of the gunfire and the screams and the explosions and all of that, the MG42s and what have you. That's incredible. So there's a moment where the camera's kind of bobbing in and out of the water, and you're hearing that kind of really, really well done, really fantastic filmmaking. So going back to the shingles, there's a moment where the Bangalores are used to blow up the shingles, and then Tom Hanks's character ends up using a bit of gum and a mirror on the end of a knife as a way to kind of see where the MG42 gun nests are. And then there's the moment with the character with the sniper rifle, and he gets in the little, in the ditches, and he's aiming up at the MG42s, and he starts taking them out with his sniper rifle. And it's very interesting that, in Allied Assault and Medal of Honor in 2002, there's a moment where there's a bit of that. Right before that, by the way, there's a bit where Tom Hanks's character is kind of sending men through, and he's saying covering fire and firing up at the MG42s. And that happens in Medal of Honor Allied Assault. And then the next moment is when you're given orders to get in the ditch and then take out the men in the MG42. And it was very much reminiscent of that scene in Saving Private Ryan, where you have the sniper and he's taking out the men up the top. And, one of the things that I liked about the movie is that it kind of goes through these stages. That initial opening scene is kind of the horror of just watching men getting taken out. There's a moment where you have these faceless Nazis, you can't see them, and you just see an MG42 pointed at one of these landing craft that have opened up, and he just takes out all of the men, just all of them. They all just fall to the ground. They're all dead. I remember showing this scene to a friend of mine who just has zero interest in history, and she's watching this, and she said, "Oh my God, what's going on? They need another plan." And I said to her, "No, this is the plan. This is the plan. You throw men at the problem." And one of the things about the scene was that you look at the men, and I noticed this, that some of them look like they're in their 30s, maybe in their 40s. And having listened to the Band of Brothers audiobook, those men were much younger than they're portrayed in the movie. Much younger. Some of them are 18, 19, 20, 21, even younger than that in some cases. These were very young men who had to make their way up those beaches and survive that onslaught. And one of the good things I think about Saving Private Ryan is that it also portray some of actually some Allied atrocities. You have the scene with the Czech soldiers who are surrendering and trying to say, "We're not German," and then of course they're shot dead. And so, in terms of a scene that portrays the horrors of war, I don't think you can get any better than that. In terms of portraying D-Day, the Normandy landings, same thing. I don't think that can be topped. Going off on a little bit of a tangent, but Furiosa did not look as good as Fury Road, and one of the reasons is because there was a lot more use of green screen and CGI, or at least noticeable CGI in in Furiosa. And a movie like Saving Private Ryan, which came out, you know, in 98, as I said, I think it was, really demonstrates the power of practical effect. You know, they filmed that scene on some beach, I think in Ireland somewhere, and you know the explosions are real explosions, and the men are real men, and you know the landing craft are real landing craft, and you know that just looks a whole lot better than anything that you can do with CGI. And I mentioned how much better COD World War II looked compared to Medal of Honor Allied Assault, but just the sheer gritty realism of that scene is just incomparable. Just anything else that you try and compare it to, you know, Saving Private Ryan is just going to look and sound better. And you know, maybe somebody else will attempt to top it at some point. Let's see. Though you know, even that scene was an incredible undertaking considering the number of extras you'd need and practical effects like the explosions and whatnot. You know, having seen, I actually haven't, I've seen a bit of sort of the movie Dunkirk by Christopher Nolan, so it was nice to see a sort of a British perspective, a big budget movie on the British perspective of World War II. You know, I hope that he will make a D-Day movie from the British perspective. So, you know, even a movie that's like an hour and a half of the lead up to D-Day, and then the final half an hour being the actual D-Day landings, that would be incredible to see. You know, there's a reason we keep seeing Omaha Beach, and the reason is that Omaha Beach was, I mean, of course it was American, the other one being Utah, and that Saving Private Ryan scene is just so incredible, and that's why you see it being recreated in Medal of Honor Allied Assault, and you're seeing it being recreated in COD World War II. I hope that, you know, Call of Duty goes back to the World War II setting and does that scene again, but bigger and longer. You know, going back and looking at Allied Assault and looking at COD World War II, you know, it doesn't, you know, it take you like 5 minutes to get off the beach. And in real life, it would have taken much, much longer than that. And out of all three of the videos that I've made on this topic, I would say the one that shows the horror of what occurred that day and the sacrifices that were made by the men who landed on those beaches. Saving Private Ryan is really the one that portrays it best. You know, I heard stories at the time that at the time veterans were walking out of the theaters and having difficulty making it through that scene. And even watching the movie, apparently there was a spike in calls from veterans saying they were having PTSD after watching this scene, given, you know, the kind of things that it was bringing out after they had seen it. So, you know, if you want the best D-Day scene in conclusion, at least in something that you're watching and not playing, then I would say certainly go and see Saving Private Ryan. I think that's all I've got to say on the topic. I know this is a much longer video than I'm usually making, but my videos are getting just a little bit longer because I have a lot to say on all of this stuff. So, I mean, let me know what you guys think. You know, did you play Medal of Honor Allied Assault? Did you play Call of Duty World War II? Did you watch Saving Private Ryan? What was the effect that those scenes had on you? Did you notice the similarities between all three of them? Do you think that there's something from another movie perhaps that is at least comparable or did a good job of portraying D-Day? Is there some piece of media that I'm missing? Let me know, pop me a comment, let me know what you think. And of course you'll be able to see the other videos that I made on this topic. They should be on screen now. And thank you very much for making it to the end of this video, guys, and you will expect to hear from me again soon. Thank you. Have a good day and do take care of yourselves. Goodbye.